The new Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
Can I ask you, what are some of the outcomes, as you see it, and Richard started to touch on them, on the Dreyfuss Initiative, that we'd have people realize they ought to vote? No matter if it's Tweedledee or Tweedledum, so-called, you vote. There's no doubt about that. What else would be the outcomes of this that you'd hope some kid inspired by this to be a good citizen?
Well, let's start with vote. When West Virginia, we just had a primary for a special gubernatorial election, 14% turnout across the
We're in Philadelphia. We can rival that on the low side.
Also, there was a great book that came out 10 years ago called Bowling Alone, and the statistics it quoted have been held up by by additional surveys. 3% of American citizens are engaged in their community. This is the people who turn out for sewer meetings and zoning meetings and school board meetings. 3%, that's terrible. So when you have a 14% voter turnout and a 3% turnout at a public hearing that deals with actual policies, you've got a real problem with this civic culture. And so where we're tracking with this is to look at how do we get young people engaged. Again, going back to the legacy of Horace Mann, how do we create an effective, engaged citizenry? How do we get young people to register to vote? How do we get them to turn out and vote? How do we get people to hold power accountable, to not only attend those hearings, but ask questions at those hearings? To read those GAO reports, to demand of their legislators, and especially as we come into the cycle coming up here in the 2012 elections, demand of candidates that they answer the question. And if they don't answer the question the first time, ask it again and again and again. Because that's what has allowed a lot of these people to get away with, in essence, a murder of our civic culture.
Final words tonight from Richard Dreyfuss on this gathering tonight and on the Dreyfuss Initiative and the news that you've made.
If you Google me, you'll find lots of pages that are anti-Richard. People say nasty things or truthful things. And what you won't find is anyone arguing the issue of teaching civics to the young. I don't like my feelings hurt any more than anyone does, but I'm willing because I love my country and it's worth it. And I'm never going to let anyone stick his hand into my family and take my daughter or my son and say, come along with me, little girl, little boy, let's go fight an illegal war and I'll give you an education or I'll give you a reward, when the education makes no sense and we don't know how to sew or cook or light a fire or know what due process is anyway. You don't know what due process is, so we change it to selective due process, and you don't know the difference. I don't know the difference. I'm telling you, don't be distracted by the distraction industry. There is an industry in this country, and you know it's there because that's where the money, creativity, effort, and time is going to keep you from thinking about what you should be thinking about, which is that you are sovereign powers. And you have all the authority in this country in your hands. You must learn to wield that authority with power and confidence and grace and continue the gift to mankind that this Constitution and its Bill of Rights has always been. Take it out of the hands of Rupert Murdoch, who has done his level best to destroy your freedoms, and bring it back. And bring it back to you. You have that right. You have it now. All you have to do is remind them of it and punish some guilty parties and applaud some heroes. Wouldn't you like to see some guilty parties go to jail? Wouldn't you like to see some bankers go to jail? And wouldn't you like to see some heroes applauded? We need these things because that's what society exists on. That's what we breathe in and out. And when incivility becomes the norm, when all we do is yell and scream at one another and interrupt. We have coarsened our political, our social, our spiritual lives. I don't know whether there's a God in heaven, but I know the difference between a good life and a bad one. And we cannot participate in the coarsening, the constant decay of our culture. We are in the third act of this nation's history. It will be gone by the end of the 21st century, and our grandchildren will mock us for ever thinking that it was anything different. And we will not be thanked by our children when life hits them and they are as unprepared as we are allowing them to be. And if anyone here would like to defend the status quo, would like to say, oh, these are not so difficult problems, and this does not, he's exaggerating, just raise your hand. Okay, you've just given yourself the perfect example. You all know what I'm talking about. You may not like me, you may not like my tone, but you agree with me. Now it's in your court. Do something about it. Do something. Give us money so we can continue doing it. Think on your own of how you can do it in your own communities. But get into this game. Get in. Don't stand like innocent bystanders. There's no such thing as an innocent bystander. You can be bystanding, but you're not innocent. So if you agree that this is a problem, you can solve it. There's no such thing as an insolvable political problem. Thank you.
Mr. Richard Dreyfuss, everyone, and Scott Faulkner here on the New Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Richard Dreyfuss.
The new Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.